In this episode of The Nerdy Photographer, we'll be discussing the classic film Highlander and how it relates to being a photographer. All that and more after this brief message. Hey, are you worried about having the right contract to protect your photography business? Do you deal with second shooters and associate photographers and you want to cover all the bases and make sure that you've got everything locked up tight with your contracts? You can head over to nerdyphotographer.com and check out our selection of boilerplate contract templates for you to use. You have the brains of a goat, and you smell like a dung heap, and you've no idea whatsoever of your potential. Yes, that is one of Sean Connery's lines from the film Highlander. You might be wondering what a movie about immortal sword fighters battling each other through the centuries until one remains has to do with photography, and, well, it actually has a lot to do with the mindset that you need to run your own photography business. Are you shocked? Keep listening, you might not be. Also, it's a really awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, just go check it out. There's tons of beautiful vistas of Scotland, which I highly recommend. You go and visit Scotland. I'm not just saying that because I have Scottish heritage. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous country. Go to Edinburgh, go to Skye, go all over the place, wherever you go. It's gorgeous. There's also a fabulous soundtrack to this movie by Queen, right up there with the Flash Gordon soundtrack. I mean, songs that are both heartbreaking, such as Who Wants to Live Forever, and ridiculous, like Don't Lose Your Head. And you got Clancy Brown as Kurgan, who's one of the all-time best movie villains, in my opinion. Change my mind if you think otherwise, but, you're going to really have to work hard on that one, because happy Halloween, ladies. Nuns. No sense of humor. And then you have Sean Connery, who, as one of the only main characters in a film about a Scottish Highlander with anything close to a Scottish accent, plays a Spaniard who's actually an Egyptian. Are you confused? You should be, because it's really weird, and they really don't go into it at all in the movie why this guy who's an Egyptian pretending to be a Spaniard in Scotland has a Scottish accent. Just sort of like when Sean Connery is in the Hunt for Red October and he's the only Russian guy who speaks with a Scottish accent. But when he makes his entrance in Highlander, it's so awesome. Greetings! I am Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, Chief Metallurgist to King Charles V of Spain, and I am at your service. Love it. But I digress. We were supposed to be talking about what this movie has to do with running your own photography business. Well, the tagline for the movie Highlander is, and you'll hear it about 100,000 times in the film, there can be only one. Yes, there can be only one. And, much like being a photographer looking for work, the client is only going to hire one photographer. There can only be one photographer that they hire for the job. In the beginning, there may be hundreds of potential photographers to choose from. They're going to work on that list down to a few, which, if we're going to keep drawing analogies, is the gathering in the movie, as it were, until only one remains. Now, luckily, we're not chopping each other's heads off or fighting in the Madison Square Garden parking lot with swords to try to get these jobs, but you have to remember that as you work down to those last few people on the list that they're going to choose, there are lots of reasons why they're going to make their decision. And you have to remember, if you're going to be successful as a photographer, that you can't go into the job thinking that you're going to get every single job. You have to develop a pretty thick skin. You're not going to get everyone, and you're going to lose sometimes, and that's okay. It's okay that you didn't get the job. What you should do when you don't get the job is learn from that. Learn why you're not getting the job, why they chose somebody else, but don't take it personally, because in the end, the reason that they're making those decisions are not personal. But it can be difficult because of, if your name especially is on the business, if you say, like, for me, it's Casey Fetchett Photography, it's hard when someone chooses not to hire me and goes with another photographer, because it feels almost like, I put myself out there and you're not hiring me, there must be something wrong with me. But that's really not the case. And when you put in all that time and effort and they hire someone else, you feel like personally hurt. And I've been doing this for 20 years, and I still have to remind myself that there are a million reasons why people might choose to go in a different direction that have nothing to do with my abilities as a photographer, as a business person, as a marketer, as whatever. They just have their own reasons. Which brings me to another line, also by Sean Connery, from the movie Highlander. Sometimes, McLeod, the sharpest blade is not enough. I'm sure you've probably had someone hire another photographer instead of you, and you've seen that photographer's work and you've thought, why did they hire them? Or you see people who are apparently busy all the time, and you see their pictures and you think, this person is not putting out the same quality of work that I am, but they're getting hired all the time. What am I doing wrong? Why aren't people hiring me? What is it? Is it just about price? If this hasn't happened to you, give it time, because I'm sure you're going to get there. If you stick with being a photographer for very long, you're going to eventually come across this. Why is this person working so much? And, I feel like I'm not working as much as they are, or I should be. You'll reach this point at it's a hill you'll climb. And there are so many reasons why people may have hired that photographer, or why people hire those photographers. They may have had a personal referral from somebody else who would hire them if it's for a wedding. Like, my sister Susie hired this photographer and we all know them and we just feel great around them and feel really comfortable. You're not going to beat that. If it's somebody who's just interested in price and they're going for the lowest price person around and you're not the lowest price person, you're not going to get that job. And you can't take it personally that somebody's just like, I'm only interested in the bottom line amount of money that I'm going to spend. Because then you're just competing on price, and you're never going to have a long-term successful business if you're just competing on price. Could be about the style, could be about just like if they met with that person or talked to them on the phone, or just the marketing materials that they have. It could just be that they had a better connection with that other photographer, and you just couldn't beat that. Like that bond between them, they just, they read that photographer's website or their blog or saw something on social media and just thought, this person is going to get me, they're going to understand me, I want to hire that person. But you can't let it get to you when they hire somebody else. You can only control your own interactions with your potential clients and what you put out there on your website, on your blog, on your social media, all that stuff. Outside of that, you can't exercise mind control, even though there are some things you can do when it comes to marketing to appeal more to certain types of clients. That's something we can maybe go into later on in another episode, if that's something you want to hear about. If you do, let me know. But even when you come across the perfect client, the one you've been marketing directly towards for years, and you handle everything perfectly, they might still hire somebody else. It's possible. I had this happen to me. I think it's been about 2 years ago now. This person got in touch with me. We were on a Skype call, and I thought, wow, this is just, they check every box. When you create your sort of ideal client, the person that you want to work for, you want to hire you, and you got to do your marketing towards that person, or when you're blogging or whatever, you're speaking at that person. This person, seriously, every single box. Check, 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 check. All the way down. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what happened. Oh, we love your work. We love the pictures. They really speak to us, all the stuff. Then, a week later, we hired somebody else. Why? Because it just, they're like, oh, well, this person offered this package that had this thing in it that we really wanted. Nothing I could do about it, because I brought up all of my, all the things that I thought I should. I asked questions. Whatever. It happened. It was a little disappointing. Yes, of course. But I moved on and adjusted, saying like to myself, okay, I need to bring up the fact that this person was looking for one specific thing, and that really made their choice. Why they made their choice was based on one very specific product, and I have to be more careful about like saying like I can do lots of different things. If I didn't mention it, ask me about what you're interested in. That that I learned from that to say like, hey, tell me what it is you're most interested in, because if it's something that's gonna their decision is gonna pivot on, I want to know. But there's any one of a million reasons you can think of that they could hire somebody else, and it may have nothing at all to do with you, and you just need to be honest with yourself, take notes, learn what you can when a potential client goes in a different direction. I always recommend that people reach out when somebody says, oh, we're hiring somebody else. Ask 2 questions. Who'd you hire and why? What was the main decision? Some people I've heard, in forums saying like, oh, that's just rude. And, they already said they don't want to hire you. You shouldn't be reaching out to them and asking them these questions. What's the big deal? Like, you've already spent a bunch of time on this. If they don't answer you, whatever. What's the worst thing they can say? No, they don't answer. I have enough people who like ghost when they've emailed me about wanting me to, give them information about my business and what I charge. I spend the time to write them back and never hear anything. Like, so what's the big deal if I write back asking for, like, hey, sorry, we're not going to work together. Can you let me know who did you hire and what was the reason you went in another direction? Or you might just want to say, why'd you hire somebody else? Ask. You'd be surprised. I'd say about 40 to 50% of the people who don't hire me, when I ask them why they hired someone else, tell me. And that is the most valuable information as a business owner that you can get, because you can find out why people are making other decisions. You can find out, if it's just about price, if you're like way outside the price range for the people who are coming to you, maybe you need to market to a higher price set client. If it's about like, oh, we really love these types of images, maybe you are marketing towards the wrong people there, or you need to get some of those types of images in your portfolio, especially if you already have them, but you just aren't showing them off. Maybe they're the things that, you need to focus on a little bit more so that people can see that. I had one couple who told me that they didn't hire me because their wedding was going to be entirely inside, and they wanted somebody who was very familiar with photographing in dark venues, which I am, but they didn't realize that because the photos that I showed didn't seem like it was in a dark venue. It was just how I had lit everything. And so that's one example of, hey, this is something maybe we can work out. But you have to, take all that information in and distill it and find out what direction you need to go in. And you can't look at it from it's some sort of like personal affront to you, because in the end, there can be only one.
And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death.
For this episode's useless information, a jiffy is an actual unit of time. It's 1/100th of a second. So if somebody says they'll do it in a jiffy, you know what your shutter settings should be. Thank you for listening to the Nerdy Photographer podcast, and basically me doing my Sean Connery impersonation over and over again, but also a really important message for photographers. Please follow the Nerdy Photographer on Facebook at the Nerdy Photographer, on Twitter and Instagram at the Nerdy Photo. Subscribe to the podcast. Follow along. There'll be more episodes. Please subscribe. Tell me tell me what you would like to hear on the podcast. What do you want me to talk about? Do you want more interviews? Are there technical questions you want to hear about? I don't know what to talk about unless you tell me, and then if I'm left to my own devices, these are the sort of things that you get. And if you like this, tell me. I'll do more of it. Until next time, folks, talk nerdy to me.
Who's coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.